Aman, that's Aman, yeah?
Yes.
So recently, in India, we had some communal problems in the districts. Are you aware of any district?
We had one recently, yes, last night.
Where in Delhi?
Yes.
But what happened?
As per reports, there was a procession of Shubha Yatra, the March procession. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then supposedly there were clashes between the communities.
Some other community threw stones or something?
Ma'am, I would say there have been many reports, multiple accounts, and I think a proper inquiry is required as to what began and how it started. Yes.
Any state, any district in Rajasthan which had a similar issue in the recent past?
Not.
You haven't heard. Or in Madhya Pradesh? You haven't heard.
No.
Okay. So you did something about Thailand. You studied there or you went for a debate?
Yes.
So what do you find good about Thailand?
Ma'am, I would say it was the cleanliness because the city and the entire country is very clean. People are responsible when it comes to living their lifestyles, normal sanitation, I would say the infrastructure also in terms of roads and mobility.
How's the infrastructure?
I would say it's quite developed. Again, there are disparities between centers, but on the whole, I think there is decent infrastructure around the places that I went to for mobility and for the.
Okay, tell me about this cycle of poverty. Every country, especially India, goes through this cycle of poverty. What happens?
So I would say on the level of family, let's say there's a family that's already poverty stricken. What happens is as the youngsters grow up, they're not able to improve because they don't have the big push that can drive the family out of poverty. So if we let's say take the number of members in the family, wherever supposedly the male gets married at a very young age to supposedly very young female, maybe below even the marriageable age, and then they have children above let's say the norm which they can probably nurse and maybe educate. So that vicious cycle continues, and the resources that are already meager resources that the family has, that gets very clearly divided. And then there's no push to lift the family up from the poverty line. So that's how the cycle continues.
So, you've heard about climate change, right?
Yes.
Climate change. So, how has it affected countries of the world?
So, firstly, I would say when it comes to adaptation, in terms of efforts that the countries are making voluntarily, there's of course going to be some distortion in price if countries are very serious about supposedly carbon emissions. Then the poor are bound to face some problems. Otherwise, when it comes to the direct negatives, there are countries facing issues with the rise of water levels. Then the disasters that we have, they're getting more intense. And overall, I would say the distortions that happen as a result of natural disasters, that has increased. And also, there's some effect on things like, I would say, when you look at agricultural processes, we have overuse of fertilizers, which feeds into climate change. And
how about the heat? Like the temperature is going up?
Yes, ma'am.
So have you heard how Europe was facing high temperature 2-3 years ago and they were just going to die? Because they can't tolerate heat.
Ma'am, I did hear that there was some overlapping heat effect because of the trapping of warm airs.
Yeah.
As soon as the upper layer of the atmosphere got denser because of polluted particles.
Right. So it affects the human body. That's why, they say in anthropology, I don't know if you studied that, in Africa, where especially below the equator, that whole area, they have stunting because of the high temperatures. It affects the brain. And then it carries on and the descendants. So you can imagine how bad it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it? Right, sir.
Okay. Aman, you see, you come from Katyar,
Yes, sir.
is it not? So there is a river, Kosi, somewhere nearby. And people say that because of Kosi, there are a lot of problems in Bihar. My question to you is, do we have any solution for that, which is workable?
So of course, Kosi, which is the sorrow of Bihar, because it floods every year and there's problems for a significant portion of the population. So I do believe there are permanent solutions in addition to the temporary ones. But that takes an international angle because Kosi originates from Nepal, and Nepal is where the river gets receives heavy rainfall, and that's how the scourge comes down to the state of Bihar. So as per evidence and research, maybe building dams and check dams in the plains of Nepal, in the foothills of Nepal, to check the discharge can be a solution for Bihar. So yes,
why it is not being put the solution?
So the international cooperation, that's difficult because there's always the dam becomes a sensitive issue, and that requires a lot of political commitment to cooperate and then maybe find out a solution in India-Nepal relations.
Has it been tried?
So there have been several agreements like the Kosi Agreement of 1954, which promised continuous dialogue when it comes to addressing the problem, but that has outlived its utility, and that has not been renewed as of now.
Okay, so making dams in the area which belongs to Nepal.
Yes, sir.
Is it? That's it. Any other solution?
So the temporary ones like embankments to control.
They tried embankment, it doesn't work out as well, is it?
Yes, sir. Then also controlling the discharge or the material that's there in terms of carrying capacity. Because the rivers, when they take a lot of the soil, the riverbeds get spilled. That's where the carrying capacity reduces. One of the more difficult solutions is trying to clean out the.
Has that been tried?
So
let me say the word dredging.
Yes, sir.
Whether the dredging has been tried?
So I think it was tried, but not at a large scale. That's why there are suggestions that we should do that at a large scale to probably control the situation.
Okay. We have our neighbor as Sri Lanka. They have some problem, and at least part of the problem I would say is economic in nature. Is it not?
Yes.
Where things have gone wrong? Can you just trace it back and tell me where it has gone wrong on the economic front?
Yes. So I think Sri Lanka did suffer from a range of poor economic policies. Firstly, apart from policies, so we did have COVID, which slowed down the global economy, and the foreign tourists visiting Sri Lanka reduced rapidly. So they did not get much of foreign exchange. So and Sri Lanka is very much dependent on imports for their fuel requirements and also other critical goods. And so, in terms of policy, Sri Lanka did try the approach of Margaret Thatcher and Reagan, where they slashed taxes.
Some people told that yes. Some people told that they also have this everything free policy. That give it free to the people.
Yes, sir. They did follow a policy of freebies also, where I think 30% of the fuel requirement was promised to be given free. I think electricity units were also made free. So the freebies combined with reduced tax collection. So it's okay to have freebies at some scale, sir, but you ought to pay for it too. That increase the deficit, and when deficit increases, inflation goes up. So that also fed with the reduction of reserves, things got very expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You belong to Kathia.
Yes.
What do you do these days?
So currently I'm working as a summer associate at Bain and Company. Bain and Company.
Is it an engineering company or what type?
So it's a management consulting firm.
But where it is headquartered?
So in the US.
Huh?
In the US.
Yes, but in India or
So
where it is?
Gurugram.
Huh? Gurugram. And you work online or you physically work there?
So there's sort of a hybrid mode where 3 days in a week we visit office and 2 days we try to complete our assignments online.
So you live in Delhi?
Yes, sir.
Gurgaon.
So Gurgaon for the past 2 months. Otherwise I've been in Delhi for the last 8 years.
Do you know the border clashes or the border issues between India and Nepal? Are you aware of?
Yes, sir.
Which are the points?
So this Kalabani region and I would say, so I'm going the exact places.
What is the cash crop of your region?
So definitely fox nuts, makhana, that's one. And so also to some extent maize, because in Bihar at least now, maize has they have begun selling maize to commercial entities. So that has become one source of I would say cash crop indirectly.
There is a product called golden fiber. What it is?
So that's jute.
Is it produced in Katiyar again?
No, sir. It's mainly the center lies around Bengal.
Nowhere in Bihar.
So there might be centers in Bihar which I'm not aware of, but like
You never lived in Katiyar, is it?
so I've hardly seen it.
Hardly there. There are so many jute processing centers all over the districts. Katiyar, Kishanganj,
There are jute mills.
Jodhpur, all these places. And this is very important product of the world. Don't know, but Bangladesh produces the best quality jute. But next is they are part of Bihar in India. Why you want to join civil service?
So that emanates from my background in economics. So reading about economics and the research, it tells you that how policies matter at the local level when it comes to implementation. So instead of like studying the subject further, I wanted to maybe spend some time on the ground, and civil services provides the best platform to do that, as to see how the policies work and how minor tweaks can lead to massive changes when it comes.
Are you not watching that the administration is becoming very tough every day, and there is too much of violence in the society? Don't you think that it will be quite a difficult thing to handle?
So I think, given the importance of the job, there are going to be obstacles. So yes, I would say at times, and I've spoken to people who are serving, at times things do get difficult. So I think that's where I would probably like want to find a solution.
Tell me three important problems of India. Serious problems in India.
So first, I would say on the economic front, unemployment is the biggest challenge because we aren't getting proportionate jobs for the people who are moving out of agriculture, the ones who are taking up education. So I would say unemployment is the biggest challenge on the economic front. Secondly, I would say, so in terms of security, definitely the border clashes that we have in China, and I would say the neighborhood security that we have, because Indian diplomacy in its neighborhood hasn't been positive. So I would say that on the international front. And thirdly, sir, I would say again, when it comes to the policies that we have, of course we do have some very good policies in place, but the implementation as such lacks, and that hasn't been, I would say, at a very appreciated level. So I would say the implementation part of the very good policies that we have in terms of welfare schemes and otherwise, that has to be made better.
Don't you think that the constitutional values, and to begin with the preamble of the constitution, is not visible very clear these days in implementation?
So when you look at the final outcome of the policy that we have, yes, I would say we
Are they conform to the preamble of the constitution and constitutional provisions 100%, or there is some decline in its implementation?
So I'm not aware of the decline because since I've started observing, I would say policy making. So I would say when you look at the end result of policy, which really matters, I would say so we have not yet promised the constitutional values or the promises that we made when it comes to, let's say, lifting people out of poverty, helping the poor, and breaking the cycle of poverty, of course, which India suffers from. So yes, I would say in terms of the final outcome, the constitutional values are not entirely fulfilled.
A great leader of India recently told that in 25 years India will become Akhand Bharat. What does it mean?
So I think the concept of Akhand Bharat emanates from the fact that you probably unite the Indian subcontinent as it were as per the ancient scriptures. So the neighboring areas, which includes, I would say, Pakistan and these countries, that's the concept of Akhand Bharat.
Is it that, or there is cultural transformation, total cultural transformation in India is the Akhand Bharat? Or as you say, you are saying geographical integration of the region is Akhand Bharat. So don't agree that the cultural integration of India, dominant cultural integration of India is going to make Akhand Bharat.
So the geographical part emanates from the cultural part, which lies at the heart of it.
You need to say that it is focused on a neighboring country, is it?
No, sir. It's focused. The primary aspect is cultural. That the idea of Akhand Bharat being that India is the home to the dominant culture, which the ancient scriptures state that lived here, and the entire area which was housed to this dominant culture is supposed to be the idea of Akhand Bharat. So yes, it's a geographical concept emanating from something primary, which is cultural.
Thank you, sir. Aman, Bihar, you are from Bihar. What is the average land holding of farmers in Bihar as per the last agricultural census?
So it's below 1 hectare.
1 hectare.
Below 1 hectare, 0.9 something.
It is even below 1 acre. 0.38 hectares comes to. So how do you think the farmers' economic condition can be improved when the land holding is sold and segmented? But as a district collector of maybe any district in Bihar, what actions, short-term actions, just tell them to short-term actions you will take to ensure that farmers' income is enhanced, which is in, of course, tuned with the government of India's policy also to increase farmers' income.
Suppose when you have such a marginal piece of land, farming itself isn't very economical for you. So I would say the farmers in Bihar, they either working as drivers somewhere, or they have some secondary profession, and they practice farming mostly in the growing season. And so which I think isn't very economical when it comes to the larger idea of things. So of course we have to economize agriculture, which is about consolidating land holdings. So I would say land leasing. The farmer can trust that I can lease my land for the cropping period to somebody else who grows the crops for me and gives me a portion of the share for the revenue that he generates. So that too releases the person the burden of having to leave his job during the growing season, and also the farmer who practices agriculture there can maybe reach economies of scale to have greater produce.
Do you see any good role for FPOs?
So I think there have been policies which have promised in the last 2 years. Like the mega food processing parks, and then also infrastructure availability to increase the share of food processing in India, which I would say unlocks a great potential. So yes, there have been policies. The implementation as such, it's only because the policies are only 2 years.
Farmers producer
Yes, sir.
organization.
Yes, sir.
Farmers producer organization.
Yes, sir.
Do you see any possibility of people pulling in their land and then go for combined farming so that they can make use of machines, heavy machines in farming activities?
So because I think FPO is very crucial for our agricultural story, I would say that's something we have to consider very seriously. So with that, I think expertise is required so that farmers get they are assured that FPOs is going to be in their favor. So if they are advised properly, I think it's a very good possibility.
In Bihar, this provision has been there for last 7-8 years. Provision. Now, recently we have come across a case where people died because of corruption of police. And these incidents we keep hearing once in 2 months, 3 months. And also some armed gangs are coming up who are indulged in illicit trade of liquor. And government of Bihar is also losing very precious revenue from the excise. How do you see these developments? Should Bihar go ahead with continue with this policy, or should they tweak, or they should abandon this policy? Has there been any recent changes in that strategy?
So I think there was a recent change last month where the punishment was reduced for first timers because Bihar has been witnessing a lot of violation when it comes to prohibition. So as far as the policy is concerned, I would say when Bihar got total prohibition, so the state hasn't experienced total prohibition in reality because people are smuggling in alcohol. There has been cases of spurious liquor. So I think there's a need to compare the two situations where we had total prohibition and when we did not. So first, I would say, so maybe for the next month or for the next year, total prohibition should be enforced strictly so that no illegal activities do occur. And then maybe compare this scenario with the scenario before total prohibition as to how cases of domestic violence reduce or how poor people are making wise choices. So and that's when I think we can take a policy call, because Bihar is a unique case when it comes to the case of prohibition, the reasons offered.
Now, G20 leadership presidency will be coming to India next year.
Yes.
2023, India would be having this very important position of president of G20. Do you see this opportunity for India to reinforce its position as a global leader?
So I would say definitely yes, because when G20 presidential comes next year, we also lose our temporary seat in the Security Council. So I think India does require a forum at which it can engage with the top nations, which includes the ones in the G20 and the UNSC mainly. So yes, because our diplomacy, I think, is going through a phase where we are cultivating relationships and I would say at a relatively safer position. Yes, I think the G20 presidentship can be a very good forum to engage nations and then maybe form alliances as and when required.
Can you suggest one or two strategies which India should adopt to get that position and that position, to elevate its position in the international?
So I think because geopolitics today is mainly about self-interest of nations, India has to be an attractive destination for other countries too, so that they can engage with India. So maybe our economic growth can help India gain a dominant position where India becomes a exporter of cheap produce, and other nations see India as a market opportunity also. That's one purpose.
Good morning. So let's carry the discussion on international affairs only. So can you tell about the impact of Ukraine-Russia war on BRICS?
Yes, sir. So I think because of the war, the BRICS forum will gain prominence, because I would say the top countries in the BRICS forum, which is India, Russia, and China, they find a common ground when it comes to not taking a stand against Russia. And then maybe BRICS can be a forum for these three countries to engage when it comes to, let's say, economic partnerships, oil, energy, and maybe even food grains. So yes, I think BRICS can be re-energized as a result of the war, because the top nations from BRICS, they find common ground.
Don't you think there will be more proximity between China and Russia, which is not good for India?
So I think China and Russia anyways are closer than India is to Russia. So I would say BRICS becomes even more crucial, because then India is a forum where China and Russia engage. So India can maybe make its voice heard when it comes to disputes with China, where Russia can maybe play a moderating role, because Russia as such hasn't taken an anti-India stand in history. So yes, I think Russia can be what we call the moderating influence on the aggressiveness of China, and BRICS is an important forum for that.
So can you evaluate India's vision of new world order?
So I think India values strategic autonomy, where the world is no more going to be unipolar, there's going to be multipolarity. And with those multiple poles, India has to play a dominant position where it can engage with every aspect of the global world when it comes to, let's say, economics or even diplomacy. So yes, I think India's vision of the global world is that India has to be a dominant player now, and it can have its own stand, and it need not be forced by somebody to maybe alter its stand just for their interests.
So moving on to your optional subject, which is economics. We saw a recession recently, last year due to COVID, and prior to that, we saw economic recession in 2008. So, what is the difference between both the recessions and the type of recovery?
Yes. So the natural crisis that we had in 2008, there was the housing crisis of the US, which disrupted the entire financial system. And I would say so that recession was mainly financial sector led, because the housing market collapsed. The US central bank had to take steps which tightened, I would say, the flow of credit for the entire world, and that's how the recession came about. And so the recent recession that we had, that's mainly as a result of COVID, which happens to be an outlier in terms of disruption. So because of COVID, both supply and demand was impacted. That's how the technical recession happened. And so when it comes to recovery, I would say the recovery of the GFC was definitely faster, and India wasn't much impacted because RBI reserves some autonomy when it comes to its capital account. So, and as far as the US was concerned, in 2008, where Fed did take steps to bail out banks, and I think in 4 to 5 years, the effects were more or less over. And when it comes to COVID, I think so the picture isn't very much clear as to how many waves we might have in the future. So I would say this recovery requires a different angle because there's a health concept to it. The recovery can be only possible when we address our public health systems. So I think it's a very it's a new variable that's affecting economy, which is public health.
So we see many indexes. We see inequality report, hunger index, various social index. Why India is not performing very well, and how can we address this issue?
So, as far as the inequality index is concerned, I would say after the LPG reforms, the policies that we had that brought into force the private sector, which had the opportunity of engaging in many sectors and making supernormal profits. So, and so for inequality, I think our redistribution policy has to be stronger when it comes to tax collection. Even if you're satisfied with the current tax brackets and the tax enforcement when it comes to collection, that has to be tighter. And then use the net tax collected to target audience or target citizens who actually need those resources. So that can target inequality.
What is this digital detox?
So that's been a new hobby since the lockdown. Where once we all locked down into our houses, we were all so dependent on devices to get through our days. And so I didn't find that impacted me positively. So I generally made an effort to keep devices away when having interactions with people in person, because I think that was those were the lucky moments when I met people during lockdown. So I just made a conscious effort to not eliminate but reduce the extent of digital devices when it comes to maybe taking a morning walk without music on, just trying to observe things around me. So that's the concept.
So if we talk about digital economy, we see India don't have its own systems. If we are dependent upon Gmail, Google, WhatsApp, Instagram, why India is not able to build our own systems?
So I think first is the inertia, because to get such social, because these platforms work on the network effect. That the platform becomes valuable only when more people are on it. And Gmail already has a lot of users. So that means that gives Gmail already a very big head start when a new entrant enters. So I would say the reason why India does not have, I would say, Gmail or platforms like these is because we did not have them earlier, because those platforms derive value from the number of users who are already there. Because if 5 people have an access to phone and only one has Gmail, then the value of Gmail is 0. But if all 5 have it, then Gmail can be properly utilized to communicate. So I think that the beginner's advantage is already there with these platforms. Yes.
One strange thing which I find in your DAF is you are not very keen to join police services. It seems so. Any particular reason?
So it's not really on police services, but I think so because my background has been mainly on economics, and I would say that serving in the services is also about doing justice to what you have done earlier. So I think my specialization or comparative advantage will be greater in the revenue services because of my background in the subject which is economics.
Thank you.
Just one question. Have you met the IAS Topper of India last year?
So I haven't met him, sir.
Do you know where he comes from? Yes, no?
Yes, sir. He's from Kathmandu.
No?
Yes, sir.
You are not interested to meet him?
Sir, I haven't got.
आपको लगता है?
And that's one issue my parents always tell me, that you speak so fast that we cannot understand.
Yeah, I don't
Same thing here. Same, the board has the same thing.
आपको खुश करना है बोर्ड को, ठीक है? And if it goes through me like this, and I'm very good in English, तो भी नहीं समझ आया तो कुछ धीरे होना चाहिए, right? Keep it low, like say a sentence and pause for 2 seconds, then carry on. because idea तो आएगा और knowledge है तो आएगा, है ना? And you are quite capable. Therefore, I think maybe speed might cause a little minus. Suppose I'm an old person, I can't hear. अब वो है तो नहीं कहेगा, वो तो कहेगा समझ में आ गया होगा, पता है. तो बताइएगा.
जी.
हाँ.
Aman, you see, the problem which has been noted about the speed. So what you do, let the member complete the sentence of question. Listen to it very carefully. Keep on assimilating. Keep on working on it in your mind. After that, give a gap about a sentence, 1 second, 2 seconds, and just compose only 3 sentences. Don't compose more than 3 sentences in your answer. I was counting the number of sentences. In some, you went far ahead. You answered about 8 to 9 sentences. Now, if you have 8 to 9 sentences to reel out, obviously you will be fast because you want your say. So, limit it to 3 sentences or at best 4, but keep it in your mind the discipline that I will speak only 1 sentence, 2 sentence, 3 sentence, and look at the member. If member says, okay, I will have another question or a supplementary question, that's good for you. Nobody is here for listening to the lecture. In 1 or 2 occasions, you had been on a lecture spree. So do not do that. Have the PowerPoint program in your mind. Only 3 sentences to be spoken. Speak first sentence. Look at the member. Speak the second sentence. Look at the member. See whether it is going there or not going there. Okay. Communication. Communication is complete only when it originates from there and is received from somewhere. And if origination and receiving both, there is a problem, then there is an issue there. Okay. So this is one thing. Then second is general observation. Don't have hard stare. What is hard stare? When you are looking at the member, then don't look it too hard. If you look at the very hard, then it will appear as if you are having some anxiety issue. वो नहीं है. You know the answer, so there is not an issue. So don't look too straight into the member, and then others will feel jealousy about it. You're looking at a member and then I feel jealous. He's not even fixing, his stares are fixed. So fixed stare and being relaxed stare, there is a difference between it. I'm not telling that you move around, but then don't have the fixed stare. We don't do. When we are sitting at home and talking, we are not bothered about our staring, is it not?
Yeah.
Same thing here also. Only thing it is the highest form of formal interview.
This smile is very good.
So it's okay. So do that way. Otherwise, you have everything on your website. So no issue at all.
Since you belong to Bihar and Katihar particularly, I think a lot of people will ask questions about the economic condition and political condition in Bihar, and also tourist destinations, and what are the achievements of the government. And another is construction of national highways, large number of national highways. Even in Katihar, there was one bridge inaugurated by Prime Minister Nilendra Modi across connecting Jharkhand in Sahibganj. So they have been always in news. Great thing has happened in those areas. But there is dichotomy. Dichotomy means Bihar is doing in a way very good, but somehow Niti Aayog and other organizations which evaluate the performance of the states, they find that Bihar is not doing better, not good. So you have to be concerned about those data also. Then Bihar has a very typical study place near to Bangladesh, near to Nepal. So border issues has to be also dealt with. Then another thing is that almost every year big flood comes in those areas, inundated very largely and submerged the entire area. Think about what can be the solution. Means perhaps the government of India should take it on bigger scale and involve a lot of consultants from all over the world to find out some permanent solution. Otherwise, there is a lot of wastage. People migrate in lakhs during rainy season, etc. Then cash crop, and particularly this jute. Jute is very important fiber these days and used for many things, not only industrial product but also for fashion, for coat, for trousers. Jute is so lovely. So study about them and try to know as much as possible about the development of Bihar and Kathiawar, because most of the people have gone, whichever place they have gone, they pass through Kathiawar also. So they gone to Assam, they pass through Kathiawar. So know about your district, know about your region, and know about your district. Little bit more tradition is there.
Well, Aman, I fully endorse whatever has been said by the chairperson and esteemed members. Only 2 points I would like to reiterate, which may impact your scoring in the main interview. One is your speed as please work on that. Pause in between, and he has suggested a very good method that you restrict yourself 3 to 4 points. Don't try to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 points are on any issue more than sufficient. Maybe suppose he asks you to list something, then list out, then you can give 1 or 2 more points. Otherwise, 2, 3 points are more than sufficient. And second, that you are not looking very relaxed. Chair, my honorable member has already pointed out that you look hard glare जो आ रहा है because you are tense. Feel relaxed and उसका best तरीका है keep smiling in between.
Yes.
But again, very judiciously. These 2 things are from my side. Otherwise, you are an excellent candidate and you will do very well. I'm quite sure.
When is your interview on?
11th of May.
So you have ample time. You have around 20 days to prepare. So I think all the points have been covered by esteemed panel members. So you are a very good candidate. Keep working. You have time. And as far as content is concerned, overall it was very good. You could have give better answer on the place thing. So read about it more. And you could have given better answer on the detox question actually. We are more focusing on first mover advantage, whereas it requires investments, huge investments in terms of research also, So look into that answer also. Overall, you were great.
Please prepare fully for Bihar. There have been a lot of questions on Bihar. Lot of questions. Why poor industrialization? It has been a backward state for so many, despite so much of good things about Bihar.
And one more thing, yeah, when you enter in ना, आप कोर्ट बैठने के बाद कोर्ट का बटन खोल रहे हो, फिर बंद कर रहे हो, come like this only. तो आपका ध्यान वहीं जा रहा है कि बटन खोलना भी बैठने नहीं
Has anybody told you that you should that your button should be closed and then you enter? Because this is one thing we are finding quite common. And this is one activity which only distracts you initially. Rather, you should use those 2-3 seconds of sitting comfortably.
Yes.
That is very important. Because for next 30 minutes, how you sit would also impact your performance. So use those 2-3 seconds, how straight, throw back करके बैठिए आराम से relax होकर बैठिए. That is more.
Also,
हाँ पूछे?
apart from the speed, how do you find the...
No, overall you are a very good candidate. Overall personality is very impressive. But speed, because you are used to it. You talk like that. Now you can talk like that to your peers, but when you talk to this board or any other board, they are peering for answers.
Yes.
So if you give it a pause as they've all suggested, it will go better. But suppose you can't control it at all, then no one can help you.
You're confident.
Your problem.
Yes.
Yeah, but otherwise I can speak at that speed also. But we try to say that suppose the student should understand, or you should say something which I understand. Then I can assess you better. Right? But otherwise you are a very good candidate. We rate you at 70% for today, which is excellent. Very good.
Approximately 193.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Have you appeared
top
before?
bracket.
It was my first one. Remember,
Yeah.
a Delhi School of Economic exam still day before.
Oh,
So, yeah, I
oh.
had 1 day of ITIS and then directly.
Well, economics is a good subject, so they will ask you on that.
What is your age?
22, sir.
You're very young.
Superb. I think
So what bhavishya?
you will certainly make it.
Yeah. We think
UPSC also looks for young but mature people.
Ah.
You are having both. You are young also and you are quite mature in your answers. So you stand very good chances.
जो ग्लेयर के बारे में बोला ना आपने,
कभी कभी अभी नहीं
स्टीयरिंग के लिए
जो आपने कहा ना आप बिल्कुल एक टक अर्जुन की तरह देख रहे हैं मछली को, तो आप आँख को ऊपर नीचे कर सकते हैं। जैसे आप सोच रहे हैं तो आप नीचे को
हाँ
देख
डिस्टेंस का जो
हाँ,
है
ऐसे।
रिलैक्स
और आप-
अभी आप बाद में बात करें ना वैसे कीजिए ना अभी जैसे बात
हाँ,
करें।
relax.
Sir asked a question about breaks where I have to think, right?
हाँ.
So that pause becomes very awkward. I'm like, okay, this is too long.
आप अटक गए जैसे।
Then you have to think, ma'am, how to probably answer.
That's okay. You can pause 2 seconds, 3 seconds. और जब आपका स्टेयर है ना तो वो थोड़ा सा, जैसे मैं आपको देख रही हूँ, मैं नीचे देख रही हूँ 1 सेकंड, तो लगता नहीं कि मेरे को घूर रहे हैं। You know हिंदी ना?
Yes, ma'am.
But on this bricks thing, you took a little longer while thinking. So for that you should have taken permission. Sir, can I
Take some time.
Can I take some time? 2-3 सेकंड तक तो कुछ पूछने की जरूरत नहीं है आपको. But if you think that you are going to take 10 seconds, 15 seconds to formulate the reply, your answer, then you must take permission from them. Sir, can I
take some time?
Don't quantify the time.
Don't
10
say
seconds,
10
20 seconds.
seconds, 20 seconds.
The most important thing is be natural.
Be natural, yes. That's the good mantra है ये. Be natural.
गुरु मत।
So my natural is fast speed, so I'm trying to just remove
ठीक है।
that.
हो जाता है।
You are going in right direction.
Whatever improvement you play, that is also natural. It should not be forced. अब जो स्पीड का आपने महसूस कर लिया, स्पीड आप पास बोलते हैं, आपके पेरेंट्स भी हैं, आपको पॉइंट आउट किया है, तो उसको इम्प्रूव कीजिए and then bring it to natural level. Not you should not have much. अभी तो आपको 20 days हैं, so bring it to natural level but slow.
मिरर के सामने करिए, सामने शीशा, आप खड़े हो जाइए, ब्रिक्स के बारे में बोलिए, ब्रिक्स या any subject, तो you will come to understand कि अटक गए कि कह रहे, and your expression also वो दिखाएगा शीशा, मिरर. It's a very good practice. चर्चिल भी करता था, विंस्टन चर्चिल था ना, प्रधानमंत्री यूके का, वो भी करता था, वो तो इतना मोटा सा था, और अपना प्रैक्टिस करता था, मैं ऐसे खड़ा हूँ कि ऐसे, तो दिमाग लगाता था एज अ पार्लियामेंटेरियन.
Ma'am, and did become a good speaker. Come to speeches.
He was a great speaker.
I encourage.
I have read his books, very good.
बिहार में जो प्रोविजन पॉलिसी है उसके चलते जो बहुत से ज़्यादा केस हो गए हैं उसको लेकर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बहुत एडवर्सली कमेंट किया है अबाउट द पाइलिंग अप ऑफ केसेस. तो उस पर कुछ लाइनें अगर मिल जाएंगी तो पढ़ लीजिएगा, पढ़ के रखिएगा, बिकॉज दैट हैज अबाउट द पेंडेंसी ऑफ केसेस ऑल्सो एंड द प्रोविजन पॉलिसी ऑल्सो, व्हाट इज पब्लिक गुड, अल्टीमेट व्हाट इज पब्लिक गुड, दैट बिकम्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है ना,
Yes.
ध्यान रखिएगा क्योंकि ये एक चर्चित विषय है. ओके, ये तो
ठीक है,
All
all
the
the
best.
best.